Welcome to the AI in Education podcast. I'm Dan.
And I am Ray, and today we are going to experiment with this podcast. Let's be honest, Dan. For the last 16, 17 episodes, this has been one big experiment. We've been learning as we went along about podcasting.
Yes.
About conversation.
Correct.
All those other skills that I've always wanted to be able to do in my life.
Storytelling.
Yes. And today we are going to experiment on something that we're not sure if it's going to work. But hey, join us on another part of our journey around AI in education.
So what's the theme today, Ray?
Well, look, I've been thinking, Dan, we are based in Australia. We're based in Sydney. It's been a truly awful spring and summer in Australia for bushfires. I know not just in Australia, but globally the media have been covering what's going on. And I'm very aware that at the end of January, early February, there's going to be 1 million students in Australia that are going to head back to school. There's going to be students all around the world for whom this is a topic. And bushfires, how do you have that conversation? But also, how does that conversation link into other things happening within the school? And so I was really excited to discover that the hour of code that we did last year, so in November 2019, was actually linked to the whole idea of forest fires and artificial intelligence. And so I thought we should do the hour of code. Now, this is going to be a bit weird, Dan, because I've got you set up with the hour of code. It's on screen in front of you.
Yeah,
and most people are just going to be listening to the podcast and not seeing it, although they could play along by pressing pause and go and download it, Minecraft Education Edition right now. But I thought let's have a conversation about how it might link into an activity that you could do as a computer science or IT or any other kind of teacher within a classroom with a group of kids in year 7 or 8 or upwards, and how it links to things that live in their world, which is things like Minecraft, and how it links to things that are happening in the real world around bushfires and climate change.
And this did come from our AI for Earth project, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a lot of AI in it, and it is computer science based.
Yeah, so Arrow Code is all about getting students that haven't coded before to understand coding. And this year, it actually came out the AI for Earth project, and it wasn't driven at all by the bushfires in Australia. But it just happens to be all around, forest fires and things like that.
Cool. So should we give it a go?
Yeah. So if you've pressed pause and you've downloaded Minecraft Education Edition, then sign into it using your education email address. Everyone in Australia, I know in schools, will be able to just log straight in.
And we'll supplement this with a video of us recording this live. What do you think?
Let's put it on YouTube, Dan.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, we'll put the link in the show notes. So for everybody that's playing along at home, then click play when you're in Minecraft Education Edition, and then hop into the library. And in the library, you'll find something called lessons. And in there, there's lessons on lots of different subjects, but I want you to do the computer science ones and the arrow code. So Dan, you're now actually going to take the arrow code lesson live.
Fantastic.
Now, the good news is you're a faster typer than most people. And so it's not going to take us an hour.
So what is just said to me, and this is, we're conscious that this is a podcast, so you listen to this in your car or whatever. So the concept around this is that there's a village threatened by fire that needs your help. You've got a program, you're a coding assistant, which is an agent, to navigate the forest and collect the data about the fires, then write code to help prevent the spread of the fire, save the village, and bring life back to the forest. So it helps you learn coding basics, talk about AI, and also kind of think about the kind of way technology can support in these particular projects, I suppose.
Great. So click the create world and it'll go off and create it. And then as we're going through, Dan, let's talk about how it links back to the AI concepts we've talked about in the podcast and how it links back to some of the situation that we've been dealing with and probably still are dealing with in Australia around fires.
Okay. So when we're talking about just generally while we're waiting for this to load up, it has been a horrendous couple of months in Australia. And when I've been looking at the media, being local here, there's a couple of interesting technological things that have come up. And I know this isn't the time for it in the podcast really, but there's been some really interesting uses or not uses of technology. I suppose there's been a lot of analog stuff that's actually had to happen. Hopefully, there will be things that some of the technology companies will do over time to kind of support with things like bushfires. I didn't see a lot of drone technology, but I may be wrong, but on the news, it was very kind of a manual-based process. And actually being in amongst the fires over New Year, like in between states, there was an interesting use. I had the Victoria Fire app and the New South Wales Fire app because I was right on the border in Thredbo in the snowy mountains there. And it was really interesting for me to see just using that data and the visualizations that were coming through and some of the AI and predictions, when they were telling us to kind of evacuate or not, or what they were having to predict using their models. It was quite interesting to see the use of data between states. So it was quite glaring for me that, it was quite an obvious gap there.
Yeah, so we're in the environment now, Dan. So I want you to just go up and start talking to the people it's telling you to talk to. So it's going to tell you to talk to a researcher in a minute.
Okay.
And you talk to that researcher, and the researcher is going to tell you to do a task.
Okay. She's saying, welcome to the research center. You will learn how we use AI and coding to prevent fires. Your first task is to open the gate and press C.
So C opens the coding window in Minecraft, and then what you're actually going to do is build a little bit of code to open the gate, which I think is, from my memory of having done this, is going to be quite simple. So no need to get nervous or sweat just yet, Dan. But just on that point around using multiple apps to be able to see the fires, it is a bit like institutional stuff. In order to be able to do it, you've got to go to that department and get that data, and that department and get that data. In our case, it's the same data from 2 different states. Well done, Dan. You've opened the door.
The gate. Yay!
Yeah, because the code block simply said open gate. That made it easy. Talk to the next person who's an engineer.
Okay, so the engineer's now said, well done, you can program a gate. Code the agent, which is a little person inside, or a little robot inside Minecraft, to move 3 steps forward and stop on the marker.
I think we're still within your skill capability here, Dan. The point about what is happening at this point is you're just learning some of the simple steps. We're not doing AI. We are just learning what coding looks like. Like when in the old days of Logo, where you used to move the turtle forward, and then the Bebot, where you got to move the physical turtle on the ground in front of you. It's learning those things to be able to go, move forward 3, turn right 90, move forward 3. Those really basic steps are really important because it's about learning the instructions.
Yes. Cool.
So, Dan, you just work on the code to move the agent forward. Now, what is really interesting is the conversation that came out in the bushfires in Australia is, well, how do we get data that is genuinely open data that can be shared across organizations rather than simply having data locked in an application? And that's pretty similar to education. If you think about it, we've got student data locked in different systems there. It's in Mathletics, it's in Edmodo, it's in the learning management system. And to be able to use it in an AI way, to be able to apply intelligence to it, you want to bring all those things together. So it's exactly the same as we experienced in the context of bushfires, exactly the same in education as well. It's joining the data together.
Well, I miserably messed up the first attempt to move the agent forward by 3. I didn't read the instructions properly, and now I should.
So you moved it forward 1 block and it told you you'd failed.
Yes, it did. Oh, I see. So I've moved that agent forward. So I've moved something,
Okay, so keep moving through the world. So what Dan is doing is actually moving through a Minecraft world.
There's a fireman. Fantastic. Okay. Or firewoman. Brilliant. So the agent now needs to collect data about flammable materials. So that's interesting. So it's making me think about what could pose a fire hazard. So it's more than just the coding. It's making me think about what kind of materials might be. So it says, code the agent to move 4 spaces forward towards the dry bush and then analyze forward to collect the data.
Yeah, wow. So this is where the AI stuff starts to come into it. So already we've learned how to do some coding steps. But now the next step is, how do we collect the data that we need? So if you go through this process, it's about being able to do the analytics. So if you think about all the conversations we've had about AI and machine learning, and the need to be able to train a system to recognize what a good result or a bad result looks like, that's exactly what you're just about to do here.
Okay.
So remember, Dan, you're moving 3 spaces forward, just so you don't.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or was it 4? Or was it 4 spaces of this one?
We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, Dan is just moving the blocks into the right space.
It was 4. Ray, you duped me. Oh, dear me.
Okay,
I
have
thought
another
there
go
might
at
have been
coding.
4. Yeah. Interestingly, when I'm looking at this, it's also... Oh, gosh. What have I done now?
I'm hoping, Dan, that people that are doing this with Year 7 kids are going to find this easier than you appear to be doing it.
The interesting one when I'm thinking about this, obviously this is really great concept, but then you think, well, what cognitive services could you use to kind of drive some of these in? If I wanted to automate a lot of these, it's asking me to go to find somebody else. Now I've completed that one, but I can now find somebody else.
You climb through the ladder and go to the top of the tree. Yeah, so exactly right. So you think about the cognitive services we've been talking about, like being able to analyze an image. You could take a project where you say to give it 2 different types of images. So here's dry bush, here's wet bush, and train it to be able to recognize the different types, so that then you can point a camera at something and it's recognizing it. So, most often we talk about that, I think, in the AI for Earth context around wild animals. For example, using camera traps, where what they're able to do is quickly analyze camera trap photos. So camera traps are the ones you stick to a tree or whatever, analyzing which animals come to a waterhole. They take thousands or tens of thousands of photos over the course of a day, a week, or a month. And what you need to be able to do is very quickly analyze that and say, okay, is there a leopard in this photo? Is there a lion in this photo? And 90% of photos have nothing in them. And historically, they were done manually. Now they can be done automatically. And they're great examples of things that students could do as projects, where you use the cognitive services to be able to both train a model to say, recognize a lion, recognize a leopard, recognize a giraffe, and then take a whole series of images and do that analysis piece. And the task that a student could do in that is exactly the same as you would do as a researcher staring at 100,000 images of a mountainside in Tibet looking for snow leopards.
Yeah. And what I'm doing at the minute now is actually trying to navigate through a maze. It's asking me to... It's the automation, I suppose, And what this is making me do is think about the steps that I'd have to do. I'm moving an agent through a maze to find dry grass that I'd need to identify, essentially. So hopefully...
Yeah, it's giving you something a bit like a maze, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
and so you're defining the steps to go through that maze. I noticed you took the easy option, Dan.
Absolutely. Because it's a podcast and I don't want to bore everybody online.
Okay, so Dan is basically programming the agent by saying, move forward, move, turn left.
Turn left, turn right.
Turn right.
Turn right.
Move forward, turn left. For those that are watching this on YouTube, you'll spot that Dan got his left and right completely confused. Then move the agent more towards the end and then analyze the object it sees at the end.
Yeah, here we go. Is it going to work?
Congratulations,
yes,
Dan.
Fantastic.
Okay, so now you've learned some steps, which is the analysis of things, but also then the ability to actually do some analysis. So it's then you've kind of got some great steps. The next bit of the journey then is to think about the data. So Dan is moving through the world a little bit more. He's got to go and find the head of research.
Where's this head of
Well, you're going in the right direction, Dan, but now you've actually got to guide yourself through the maze.
Oh, dear me. Can I jump? Oh, no, I can't. Okay, I'll guide myself through the maze. This brings up my my ex-Minecraft.
I was going to say, I thought you were a Minecraft whiz, Dan.
I was a Minecraft whiz. Anyway, there we go. Right, get me out here. I'm a celebrity. Get me out here. Fire Research Centre this way. Wow,
Exactly,
it is actually really educational for me. Actually,
yeah, but
it's taking me to these people. They're giving me more information. I've now found the head of research.
Well done.
It says teach the agent to predict fire hazards is our best tool for prevention. So teaching something like AI to predict fire hazards is the best prevention tool. Come inside the AI specialist will assist you on training the agents. I'm going to speak to an AI specialist now.
Okay, so this is where the conversation is going to move from, hey, Minecraft and games to, yeah, but what does using AI means? Because one of the things that we know about AI is it has to have previous data in order to be able to train it for the future. So we talk about that as labeled data. So, for example, you've got a good outcome for a student or a bad outcome for a student. And knowing what that means, that might mean that a pass rate is over 90 and a fail rate is below 80. Or it might be that somebody attended for 90% is good and somebody attended for 80% is bad. Yeah. Or it might be, here's an image. This image is labeled as a lion because that's what a lion looks like. This image is labeled as a zebra because that's what a zebra looks like.
And this is now prompting me. So I found the AI specialist, and they're saying to me that there's a computer in front of me that will help teach the agent about plants that are fire hazards. So it's about machine learning. It says, watch the images on the monitor. If a plant looks yellow and dry, it's a fire hazard. So press the yes button. If the plant looks green and healthy, it's not a fire hazard. So press the no button. So it's a way of me teaching and training the computer in front of me to understand AI and learn, I suppose.
Yeah, so you're actually an AI programmer at this point. You've been given a series of images. So what Dan is looking at now is images of different types of fire hazards.
Yeah, that's a dry plant. I'm going to press that one, and I got that right.
So
they
Dan
show
is
me a
basically
green piece of vegetation.
AI.
Is a green piece of vegetation combustible or not? No. Got that right. I've got 3 out of 3 so far.
So this is exactly the same thing as you do.
Yes.
When you know those bits.
I trained the AI.
That bit where you're filling out a form and it says it needs to check you're a robot or not a robot.
Yes.
And one of the things it does is says, look at this image and tell me where the cars are. Or tell me which of these frames has got a traffic light in it. That is labeling data. What you're actually doing is training cars to become self-driving cars. Because you're training it what a traffic light looks like.
That's
what
right. I know you mentioned that.
So this is exactly the same. Now, this is more relatable to students because it's built within this context and it's much easier setup. But it's exactly the same as what advanced scientists are trying to do with self-driving cars, which is they need to know what the world around them looks like. In this case, you're doing bushfire hazards. In the case of self-driving cars, it's what things around the world look like.
Yeah, and I'm now from the scientist, and they've said to me, to successfully prevent fires, you'll need to remove dangerous plants from the area. Now let's put your training to the test. Code the agent to destroy all the plants that pose a fire hazard. Exit the chat window to start coding. Fantastic. So I've got to use the agent to start to destroy things that might not be combustible.
Okay, so walk over to the agent, Dan.
Yes, I'm going to do that right now, Ray. And for everybody listening on the podcast, this is, just while we're waiting for that to load up, it's really interesting, on several levels. As a person going through this the first time, this is the first time I've done this. As somebody doing it, I can imagine if I was a student or even a teacher taking my students through this, I'd say that if they're about 7 and above, they'd probably be able to cope with this quite easily. It really does make you think, and it's quite educational in terms of the actual way that I'm actually learning about different types of combustible material, and a lot of it's quite automated, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, so now you're presented with a lot more complex coding toolbox. But basically, it's what it's saying here is it's going to pop up things in front of you. You need to look at them. And if it's dry bush that's in front of you, then you need to destroy it.
Yes. So I'm going to try to do that. So let's see what happens. Yeah, great.
Okay, so now what's happening is things are popping up in front of the agent. Yeah. And it's either destroying or ignoring them.
So that's using in terms of computer science, it's using a while loop now. So it's using more looping structures so that you can repeat things. So like with AI, when it starts to kind of iterate.
Yeah, so you've got basic coding going on there, but then you've got the decisions it's making are based on the AI programming that you did earlier to tell it to recognize good and bad things.
And now I've got to speak to an analyst. It's quite good in terms of a role as well, because you're actually seeing, technical people. You're seeing also different, males, females. I'm kind of always quite fussy about that, making sure you get an equitable amount of males and females especially in the science area here. So there's lots of female scientists, there's analysts. I've spoken to an engineer, firewoman, a fireman.
Now, so tell us what the analyst wants you to do.
The analyst wants you to using images. The agent can now detect whether fires are likely to start. Code the agent to alert the team if a potential fire hazard location is found on a computer monitor. Wow, so the agent is looking at a computer monitor somewhere.
It's behind you.
It's behind me. There's
Yep.
the agent.
Yep.
And I'm going to press C to code.
So
And I'm gonna
I'll let you do that coding in silence, and I'll just talk about. So this is really interesting because we're now applying this to. Oh, we'll look at something on a monitor and make a decision about it. So we're taking exactly the same thing as we did on the last step, which was an agent standing in front of real. That's in air quotes, real brush. But now in this case, you're looking at it on a computer screen. So you were talking about the conversation earlier about, when are we seeing AI in use in drones and things like that in firefighting? This is a really good example because if you had a project which was taking aerial photos and then being able to look at that land use from an aerial photo to be able to go, well, here's where the forest cover is.
And he's looking now at some of the aerial photos this running past, and it's actually highlighting with redstone, highlighting the light to say when they find land that's a fire hazard. So it says find the helicopter and talk to the fire captain.
This is really exciting now, Dan. You've finished. You're now going to go and take a helicopter to a trip and do something.
No
so
way.
Continue working through your world.
Oh my word.
Okay,
I'm going
there's
into
your
helicopter.
Minecraft helicopter. That's fine. And have a chat to the captain.
I can't believe how quickly the agent learned to predict the fires. We need to hurry to this location at risk of fire. Let me know when you're ready to go.
So this is great. Students are used to this kind of thing. You're now in a different part of the Minecraft world. Can you see on the ground in front of you, Dan, there's your agent.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so have a chat to the fire captain to find out what you want that agent to do.
I was just going to do it without talking to him, which illustrates bad use of AI. I was just going to give it a go. I just got a message from the command center. There's a storm rolling in with a high chance of lightning. We'll need to start clearing this area of dry brush before it gets here. Have the agent clear that line of dry brush to remove the fire risk.
So the agent's standing in front of a line of brush, and what you need to do is build the code using all the skills that you've learned so far, Dan.
Oh, not from
to
scratch,
be able to
please.
move forward, recognize what's in front of you, decide it's a fire risk or not, destroy it if it's a fire risk, leave it if it isn't, and just get that to go across. Now, that is drawing together both basic coding skills about moving items around, but it's also bringing in this AI stuff that we've done already, which is we're using the programming that the students have done earlier about programming the bot to be able to recognize dangerous and non-dangerous brush. So, it brings the whole thing together. We have gamified the whole process, but we've put it into a context that we can now understand artificial intelligence. We can understand programming and training artificial intelligence into independent agents. We are doing it in a gamified world. So you've now programmed the bot, you've hit start. So what it's doing is it's moving forward in a straight line.
And I didn't do it.
For those that are seeing this on YouTube, Dan failed again because he forgot to.
If I put the agent move outside the detection one, then that should work. I'm doing this very quickly without reading a lot of it. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. So now the agent is moving
It's
forward.
my rudimentary use of a while do loop
It's actually destroying objects, leaving the good brush down.
Oh, fantastic.
And now, this is the last bit of the
fire.
experiment.
Watch out. Oh, no. Oh, the fire started.
Yeah, lightning has struck. The fire is marching towards the helicopter, and your agent is standing right in the middle of the fire line. But, of course, what you've done is cleared
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it?
So, look, we're able to talk about this in the context. So, the fire stopped at the line that Dan had cleared. So, we're able to talk about that now in the context of artificial intelligence, the need to program, having training data, coding in terms of the steps that you're able to do in order to be able to get an object to a place, or even just the if, then, else type of steps to say, okay, this is what you do. But also, we're now able to have a conversation about how might you use drones in fire zones? How might you use
image recognition?
But also, the general conversations in the media about hazard reduction burning and building.
He's clicking. Ray's clicking his fingers. You've got to love this on a podcast. Brilliant. Fire break. The other interesting one as well.
That's coming out, Dan.
No. Keep that in.
The other thing is also building fire breaks. That's a real life conversation that you can then link back to something that's happening in a digital world. And that's why I love this activity when I took part in it, because it's a way of being able to link the theoretical conversations we have about technology and artificial intelligence to a real conversation right now that students would be having that makes complete sense in terms of the digital world connected to the physical world.
Yeah, and at the end, right at the end here, it's not an AI thing, but it does say, well, I suppose it could be AI. It says, while you're here, why don't you help restore the area by planting flowers and spawning animals? And immediately I'm thinking, like, I need to find out which areas to do that. And I could use the same technologies that obviously it just wants you to plant stuff, but I could use AI to work out, well, where should I plant? I did see something on social media last week, actually, where they did a study. I forget who it is. I forget who the they is in this conversation. I don't like talking about things that I can't back up, but there was an image of where people should be planting trees, globally, which is quite interesting, around certain regions to kind of bring the planet's carbon back into check. But yeah, that is really interesting. I really enjoyed that activity. Ray really introduced a lot of concepts to me, and I think kids would really enjoy that.
And I think what is really interesting about this is it's much more relatable to a group of students, say in a year 7 or a year 10 class, than some of the case study material that they can read at the minute, which is around things we're doing around wildfire detection, things we're doing about wildfire spread. So we've been doing some work, started about 8 years ago in Greece, when they had big wildfire problems there, about being able to build better models that predicted the spread of wildfires around the mountains. So looking at topography and things like that. That's great stuff, but a student probably couldn't build a model around that, whereas this is designed for students to be able to use it right here and right now. But you can imagine what we've just done in 27 minutes is at least an hour's activity with students.
Yeah, I just got a certificate that I could download at the end, which I've just done as well. And there's also some other computer science fundamentals as well that you can take, and there are lesson plans. I've just noticed.
Yeah, there's a really good lesson plan that goes with this. But it's a way of being able to relate to a student. But of course, it could take more than an hour if you decide to go and take the examples of what they're doing and relate it to a conversation around what's happened in the bushfires within Australia and the whole debate about hazard reduction birds and things like that. You could put all of this into that context. So working with another teacher, maybe a geography teacher in the school or other teachers, you could actually link this into curriculum and into their real life, but building out some kind of skills as well from a technology
I'm
point
really
of view.
glad I did that, Ray. Thanks very much for... hopefully this has come across well on the podcast through audio. We try to, add that kind of element to it.
Yeah, and in the podcast links, you'll find the link to be able to go and watch what Dan was doing, because we've recorded it. We'll put it onto YouTube with this.
So, Ray, how do people find out where to go to get these resources?
Well, I'm glad you asked me, Dan. So the thing that's most important for people to know is they can go and get all of this if they go to aka.ms/hour of code.
Fantastic. And if they've got the most recent version of Minecraft, it's in there already.
Yeah, if you've got Minecraft Education Edition, it should be in there already, or you might just need to check to see if there's an update. But if you haven't, just go there. It gives you the links to download it. There's the curriculum resources that are there. But to be honest, I don't actually think you need it. Just download it, have a crack yourself, and you'll realize what you can do with the students. And it's free. So if you're in an Australian school, I know that you're licensed for Minecraft Education Edition, I think.
Yes, you are.
In most schools. So you just log in with your school email address. If you're not in an Australian school, then try it with the school email address. If not, don't worry. You can actually go and do the hour of code as a guest user without needing a license.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Dan. See you next week.
Cheers.